was really good.
I thought it was pretty good, but...
People never seem to lack for words or opinions when they're talking to each other in everyday conversation.
She's gonna mark me off. I said, well, thanks a lot. You're too kind.
Yet for most people, sitting down to put their thoughts on paper is a lot like getting a bad case of stage fright. Suddenly their minds go blank, their ideas vanish, and their sentences read like a person who is tongue-tied.
Then, in that same opening paragraph, be sure...
Your introductory course in essay writing may have already gotten you over that hurdle and helped you to understand the various steps involved in writing expository prose.
Basically, state your expertise, how you learned about them, and what your categories are. Then,
but when you hear the words research paper, or lab report, or book review, you may feel like someone suddenly turned a spotlight back on, and you're all alone on a stage once again. If you dread the thought of having to write informational or analytical essays, you're not alone. It's a process which requires more work than merely sitting down and writing about something you're familiar with. But writing a research paper is a lot like solving a seemingly difficult math problem. It really boils down to knowing the right formula to use and how to use it. This course is intended to take you through the process of writing informative and persuasive essays by helping you see the many ways in which you already use the necessary skills for such writing in your everyday life. We'll also show you how to write not only for English classes, but for any course or discipline that requires research papers or evaluative or argumentative essays. We'll take you step by step, from how to use library catalogs and microfiche machines to writing a bibliography and outline. We'll cover new areas like word processing, and we'll review old territory such as fine-tuning your thesis and writing introductions and conclusions. You'll learn how to revise and edit your papers, how to take notes, and how to develop a logical argument. But before we delve into any of these topics, let's first review what you've already learned about writing an essay.
you can give a supporting detail or two, but don't go into any great detail because that's what your paragraphs are all about.
Most writing for college courses falls into one of three categories: expressive, informative, or persuasive writing. Expressive writing is the kind you've already learned most about. It's writing that emphasizes the author's feelings about people, events, or ideas. Expressive writing conveys your reactions to the world around you. What you think about political issues or social problems or great works of art, for example. Informative writing is more objective. Rather than inject one's own personal feelings about an object or event or idea, the writer instead examines them for their own merits. A news story, for example, is informative writing. The third category, persuasive writing, tries to convince the reader, change opinions or attitudes, or arouse the reader to action. Persuasive writing depends less on descriptive writing and more on logical reasoning and the compilation of evidence to support a particular stance. It's easy to see how each of these categories is important when you consider who and what are involved in the communication, which is what writing is, a form of communication. Every piece of writing must have a writer, a reader, and something that is written about, a message or content. Suppose you're asked to write an essay about a recreational sport and you select hot air ballooning. One approach is to look at the topic from a very personal point of view, perhaps recalling and describing your first ride, how you prepared for it, what you had to wear, how the chase car kept up with you. Or perhaps you want to explain the feelings you experienced on that ride, whether or not you had any anxiety before you left the ground, how you felt once you were in the air. All of these approaches have one thing in common. They emphasize you, the writer, your experiences, your memories, your attitudes, feelings, and perspectives. Anyone who reads this piece will probably be learning more about you than about hot air ballooning. This is expressive writing, and in many ways, expressive writing is the easiest type of writing because you can write about something you already know a lot about. In fact, anytime you choose to approach a topic from a personal perspective, you can consider yourself the expert on the subject. Don't overlook yourself as a resource when you begin any writing project. But it's not enough to emphasize just the writer. You must also consider the other two parts of any piece of writing, the content and the reader. Suppose you've selected the same topic, ballooning, but you want to approach it in a more objective, less personal way. You could do research and summarize the historical development of ballooning through present day, the types of balloons that were used in the early days, and how the sport has changed or hasn't changed over the years. Or you could attend a balloon race and describe as objectively as possible what takes place.
See you in Kansas!
Where is it held? Who participates? How many balloons are there? What types? You can approach it as if you were a newspaper reporter. If you think about it, anytime you read a newspaper article, you are not interested in the writer. You are interested only in what happened. You want just the facts, the content. Histories, textbooks, and encyclopedias are all good examples of writing that emphasizes content. Content is essential in any piece of writing. And unless you are an expert in a particular field, you will need to learn more about your topic before you can begin writing about it. A third important consideration in any piece of writing is the reader. Anytime the reader is the primary focus, you're probably trying to change an opinion or convince someone to take some action. In other words, the writer and the content take a back seat to what is going to happen to the readers when they are presented with your ideas. Most advertising focuses on the reader, as do editorials and any type of persuasive or argumentative writing. Let's take our ballooning example again, and this time approach it in a way that will dramatically affect anyone who reads what you have to say. Maybe you are concerned about the safety of ballooning. Perhaps you know of a balloon accident in which someone lost his life. Or maybe you strongly believe that hot air ballooning is a very safe sport and that people should be encouraged to participate. In either case, you have a particular view or stance to support. You will be trying to get your readers to believe as you do, and perhaps to take some action based on what you write. By using this simple model, you can see what is involved in every piece of writing. Emphasizing one element will give you one approach, while emphasizing another will give you an entirely different angle, even on the same subject. You've probably written essays from each of these perspectives already, but you may not have thought about it in these terms. While it is possible to write essays that are purely expressive or informative or persuasive, most of the time you'll blend all of these approaches together if you want to be truly effective. Take, for example, the third element we discussed, the reader or audience. A key step in writing any kind of paper is to first be aware of your audience. To whom are you talking? It's important to know this before you get started, because different audiences require different kinds of information. Even your language will differ depending on who's reading your work.
And Little Round Robin didn't know that foxes were dangerous to birds.
Actually, you already unconsciously size up your audience and alter the way you present information on a daily basis. You know that you don't use the same kind of language in the classroom that you use, for example, with your friends.
The band that came on, they were so hot. Those guys, there were about 5 of them. It was completely intense.
And the language one might use in a bar room certainly is different from the language used in a boardroom.
Due to that effort, the tremendous growth that we have incurred the last 3 years.
The same holds true for the way you communicate in other ways. When you're searching for the right card to send your sister for her birthday, no doubt you first think about the kind of person your sister is. If she's kind of sentimental, you'll probably pick the flowery kind. If she's got a great sense of humor, you'll want one that will make her laugh. Different people respond to different styles, language, and presentations. That's what keeps greeting card stores and gift shops and clothing stores in business. Your task when you have to select a gift or card for someone else is to determine what kind of person you're choosing this item for. The same is true when you write. To whom are you writing? Before you sit down to write an essay, you need to determine whether your audience is a general or specialized audience. Do these people know a lot about the topic? Are they experts? Or are they relatively uninformed about your topic? Are you aiming your essay at one segment of the population only? Working women? Educators?
One of which is a rectangle.
Employers? Imagine yourself writing to a real person. Let's suppose you're writing about using animals for medical experiments. What kind of audience do you want to address? Pet owners? Biology or medical students? What if you were writing to a person dying from an incurable disease? Each audience offers a different challenge. By tailoring your writing to fit the needs of a single type of audience, your writing will be sharper and more focused. You will also have a purpose for writing. You will know what you want to accomplish and will probably have some ideas about how to go about it. If your audience is only vaguely defined, so will be your writing. Try to avoid the trap of taking a shotgun approach and writing for a generic catch-all audience. Depending on the audience you decide to address, your language and tone, as well as your approach, will vary. Some audiences require more technical terminology. With some, you may need to write in a very formal manner. With others, you can be informal. Some audiences will need more information defined and spelled out for them. Some will already be knowledgeable about the topic at hand. You may need to be serious with certain readers, and you can be humorous with others. Another component of writing an essay is learning how to explore your subject so you can address the topic fully. For example, what catches your curiosity about the subject of earthquake research? What kinds of things do you want to know about the topic? If you live on a fault line, you might want to know if an earthquake is being predicted in your area. Perhaps you're wondering if technology has advanced enough so that it's even possible to predict an earthquake. If you've ever experienced an earthquake or tremors from an earthquake, you may want to know about the aftershocks. When can they be expected? How serious are they? How long do they last? There are several ways to explore your subject. The two easiest methods are to ask questions and to make lists. To flesh out your subject by asking questions, think about the last time you asked for the keys to your parents' car.
Well, because I need to go to the movie and we're supposed to be there in 15 minutes.
Who are you going with?
Oh, I'm going with Jenny, and then we're going to go pick up Jeff, and so I have to drive.
Why, you always have to drive.
Well, I know, but your car has a tape deck, and it's a lot nicer.
No doubt your parents asked you a barrage of questions before agreeing to part with their keys. Who are you going out with? What are you going to do? Where are you going? When will you be back? How are you going to pay for the evening? Or why can't Jenny take her parents' car for a change?
Your car's nicer than Jenny's. It has a tape deck.
These are the same basic questions all reporters ask when they arrive on the scene of a story. Who, what, where, when, how, and why? Who was involved? What happened? Where did it happen? And so forth. As a writer, these are also the same kinds of questions you should ask of your topic. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Exploring a topic by making lists allows you to brainstorm everything you can possibly think of on a subject, and then you can decide which aspects you want to include in your paper. You simply jot down anything and everything that comes into your head relating to the subject you want to write about. Don't worry about trying to list ideas in order or by logic. That you can do after you've completed your list.
Baby kiss.
Bye, man.
We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wave, Garrett.
If, for example, you are writing about men who take paternity leave to care for their newborns, here is a sampling of some of the things you might include in your list. Reaction of other men, problems encountered, effect on career, effect on marriage or family, benefits, drawbacks, why did they do it, Would they do it again? And then ask yourself, how do I feel about paternity leave? Is it fair to an employer? Should it be regulated by law in the same way as maternity leave? And here again, don't forget to consider all three elements that go into a piece of writing. You, the writer, the content or issue, and the reader. The more you have to write about before you begin to write, the easier it will be when you actually get started. Notice that in order to answer some of the questions about paternity leave, you can draw upon your personal experiences. You may be married, or you may know someone affected by paternity leave, someone in your family perhaps. If you have experiences that relate to the topic, you can share them with your readers. Developing information about the reactions of other men and drawbacks of paternity leave may require researching the topic to get a better grasp of the facts. You will need to read in order to explore the content. To answer your questions, should it be regulated by law, and is it fair for employers, you may have to take a position and persuade your readers to change their minds. You might not choose to explore all the things on your list, and you will probably need to rearrange the items you do choose so they are in order of importance. Another way to generate ideas on a topic is to brainstorm using a cluster diagram. Place your topic in the center of a page, circle it, and then quickly jot down as many different aspects of the topic as you can think of. You can treat it like a word association test. Look at your topic in creative and unusual ways. Explore each branch idea before you return to the main idea. Here again, the more you write down, the easier and better your writing will be. You'll be able to go beyond the obvious and avoid writing what everyone else will write. Sometimes you may want to let your ideas incubate for a day or so. Let your mind sort things out for you. Keep mulling the ideas over until you find something to write about that genuinely interests and excites you. If you're bored by your topic, your readers will be too. Once you've narrowed your topic and feel you have something interesting to say, go back over your notes. Some writers use full outlines before they begin. Some just jot down the main points they want to cover and then arrange them in order. Organizing your paragraphs before you begin to write can save you a lot of time later. Writing the actual essay is really a question of organizing information paragraph by paragraph. Expository essays are structured with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction sets forth the general subject and announces the thesis. A thesis is, in essence, a one-sentence statement of what the essay is about. In a short paper of about 500 words, the introduction is no more than one short paragraph. In larger essays, it can take several paragraphs to lead up to the main point of your paper. Here's an example of an introductory paragraph.
Of all the appliances that fill my kitchen, there is one for which I am most grateful, one which causes me the greatest consternation when it is out of working order. This appliance is the dishwasher. I can make do without my food processor. I can adapt when my toaster conks out. I can manage without the garbage disposal, but I simply cannot function without my dishwasher. As far as I'm concerned, the dishwasher is an indispensable part of my kitchen.
The first sentence introduces the general subject, kitchen appliances. With an introduction, you don't want to be too broad or too narrow in scope. If your essay is about the advantages of the dishwasher, don't start by talking about houses or places to buy household appliances. That's too wide a focus. By the same token, don't start by being too specific either. That's a little like jumping into a cold pond without first getting your feet wet. It's a shock to your audience. In the sample introduction we just read, sentence 2 states that specific subject, the dishwasher. Sentence 3 provides a list of other appliances in the kitchen which, by contrast, are not as important to the author. This sentence builds and builds, leading the reader to the thesis of the paper. Sentence 4. This is the basic pattern for the introduction of an expository essay. Notice that the structure of this paragraph resembles an inverted pyramid or a funnel. The information presented in the paragraph goes from the general to the specific, from a wider scope to the single idea or kernel at the base of the essay. The body of the expository essay provides support for the thesis. In the example we just used, the statement, "The dishwasher is an indispensable part of my kitchen," begs the question, why? What's so great about the dishwasher? The author has set herself up to prove her point. The number of paragraphs it will take to prove your thesis depends on the topic and the length of the assignment. In a short essay, only 3 or 4 paragraphs are needed to back up the assertion. Each paragraph in the body is like a mini-essay. The first sentence introduces the main idea of the paragraph. The middle sentence supports that idea or adds to it. And the final sentence concludes the thought. Each body paragraph should contain concrete details, specific examples, or facts to prove the thesis. Some people suggest writing your thesis on a 3x5 card. After you have written the body of your essay, reread each sentence. Ask yourself, does this sentence relate to the thesis? If it doesn't, it either shouldn't be in the essay or it needs to be rewritten. Each paragraph in the body of an essay deals with a different thought or aspect of an issue. Each sentence in a paragraph relates to a single chain of thought. This is known as unity. If you are listing the many time-saving features modern dishwashers possess, for example, you would not switch over halfway through the paragraph to a discussion of the historical evolution of this machine. If you start on a new train of thought, be sure first you finish the previous one, and then start a new paragraph for the new idea. Similarly, moving from one paragraph to the next without smooth transitions is as jarring to the reader as channel hopping is to the TV viewer.
Hey, I was watching that.
A transition is a connective phrase or sentence that helps bridge one idea to another. It keeps your writing coherent. Phrases like, in addition, another reason, for example, despite this, or however, are good transition devices that link thoughts together. There are other ways to connect paragraph to paragraph and sentence to sentence. Repeating key phrases or words binds the essay. In the example we used earlier, words like dishwasher and cleans are central to the essay. So repeating them several times throughout helps hold ideas together and echoes back to other sentences. Similarly, using synonyms for those key words helps the reader retain the central focus of the essay without the paper sounding overly repetitive and therefore boring. So instead of saying dishwasher each time, you might occasionally call it a time-saving device or a household appliance or even a lifesaver. Using parallel structure is another way to keep thoughts unified. In the introductory paragraph we read earlier, the writer used parallel structure to set up her thesis.
I can make do without my food processor. I can adapt when my toaster conks out. I can manage without the garbage disposal.
Notice how the same kinds of phrases keep repeating in a single sentence. The author is essentially listing the many other kitchen appliances she can do without. She could have simply said, I don't need any other appliance as much as I need my dishwasher. But by using parallel structure, the writer builds a sort of rhythm.
I can make do without my food processor. I can adapt when my toaster conks out. I can manage without the garbage disposal.
And with it, she builds expectations and anticipation for the reader. By the end of the sentence, the writer has set you up to expect to hear the contrast. What can't she do without, you wonder? And then she tells you.
But I simply cannot function without my dishwasher.
Sentence variety is another important device to use when composing a paragraph. If every sentence were approximately the same length and the same structure, your reader's eyes would begin to glaze over from sheer monotony. When you speak, you emphasize certain phrases or thoughts more than others by changing the tone of your voice.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
But when you write, You don't have tone of voice, or any sound for that matter, to assist you in providing emphasis. In order to clue your readers as to what's important and what's less important, you use coordination and subordination. Subordination helps you stress certain phrases in a sentence by the order in which they appear. Here are two sentences that appear to be of equal value.
I went to Tom's house. His mother was throwing pots and pans at the wall.
Are they both equally important facts? Going to Tom's house was really just a secondary fact that lets you know whose house and whose mother the second sentence refers to. However, the fact that Tom's mother was throwing pots and pans at the wall seems to be the more important piece of information. To subordinate the first sentence and emphasize the second, we could instead write,
When I got to Tom's house, his mother was throwing pots and pans at the wall.
Written this way, the sentence clues the reader to the fact that Tom's mother was angry and was having a fit. Coordination links clauses of equal value, using phrases like and or but.
Tom's mother was throwing pots and pans at the wall, and she was shouting at the dog.
After you have written the body of your essay, your final paragraph or paragraphs should pull together all the ideas you've presented and reach some sort of conclusion about the topic. This doesn't have to be elaborate. A conclusion gives finality to an essay by reinforcing the thesis, summarizing the points, and in some cases, offering a solution to a problem. The biggest mistake writers make in writing a conclusion is being too cute in order to end with a flourish, or being redundant when trying to sum up what's been said. The conclusion is not an exercise in paraphrasing everything that's gone before. If it's a long essay, you'll need to pull together all your points by listing the main thoughts in each paragraph or section, just like at the end of a long conversation when you might sum up the things you've discussed. If it's a short essay, however, you will sound like a broken record if you repeat your points. Try to have your conclusion do just that. If you can communicate to people by talking to them, you should be able to communicate on paper. That's our challenge for this course, to help you express your ideas better through the written word.
This is PBS.